when I came into like doing heady work, everybody was making the freestyle headies. The oil scene hadn't hit yet, so we had these like big elaborate, pieces that were uplines and just natural perks, and it didn't really, the function wasn't so important on those. And that was one thing that always stuck out to me is when I go to make my freestyle pieces, I always do have some sort of diffusion or something going on, because that was always a drawback to those really cool heady pieces, was they usually didn't hit very good, but they weren't being bought for the hit, they were being bought for the art. And now, we know so much more. There's been so much more brought to the table through other artists' innovations and things like that, that there are a bunch of different ways to diffuse pieces nowadays, and you can incorporate them into pretty much any design. And so now the headpieces that I'm putting out, definitely, they have diffusion and hit better than the ones that were put out, 7 years ago.
This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show. This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. Mountain Glass is holding their January sale, which includes borosilicate Golden Gate tubing at 20% off. Just put in the term Golden Gate at checkout. And they also are holding their soft glass COE 104 sale on a Fetre or a Moretti rod at 30% off. Just put in the word Fetre, that's EFFETRE at checkout. For any other questions or comments, just go to mountainglass.com. That is mountainglass.com. And this show is also brought to you by Green Flash Glass. And if you are a wholesaler, retail store, get a hold of them through their website at greenflashglass.com. Give them a phone call and place your order. That is greenflashglass.com. And all sales are always free shipping that are $1,000 or more. And now on with the show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 73. This is Jay Michael, your host. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm excited to bring you chats with artists sharing stories with hopes to inspire as well as help you grow your businesses. Today's episode features glass artist Lurch, who has been behind the torch for almost 15 years. He's a husband, father of 3 kids, and works as a full-time glass artist out of Goose Fire Gallery in California. We have great conversations as well about his history in glass and chatting about the current areas of our industry with laws and rules and what have you, and just the glass world in general. Also coming up at the end of this month of January is Age in Vegas. Also, we have Champs right after, all kicking off this year's trade shows. In a future episode, we will get into depth with the trade show talk and cover what it truly takes to have a successful show. We will also be continuing our new weekly Q&A show, and if you have a question you'd like to share, please send them to info@wiseguyradio.com. Each week, I will cover 3 questions and share the research and info found regarding these questions. And also, if you'd like to join our newsletter, please go to wiseguyradio.com and enter your email at the info bar to subscribe and join the tribe, as well as receiving exclusive discounts and content not shared on the show. And if you are listening to this on iTunes, and even if you don't listen to on iTunes, if you guys would like to go to iTunes and subscribe to the show, and also give a rating and review if you could while you're there, and then also share with your family and friends and let them know what it is you do, and share the passion we all have about this industry. And before I let you go, I wanted to happily announce that we now have a new fun deal going on with Mountain Glass. For those of you out there who have not yet purchased from a Mountain Glass or ever really gone to their website, you can now go to mountainglass.com/wiseguy. And on there, we have exclusive sales just for our audience and also for those of you out there who are new to Mountain Glass. You can get some new deals on there on starter kits and what have you. Definitely check it out. I will have the link in the show notes as well. But it's one new exciting deal going on with Mountain Glass, and we have some other ones coming up very soon. As well as I will just pay attention if you guys want to the shows. We will have some pretty cool stuff going on with them. So other than that, I'm going to let you guys go. It's time for us to have our show with Lurch, who is awesome. It's a great conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy. Love y'all. Take it easy. We'll talk to you. Peace. We got our boy Lurch with us today. What's going on, Lurch? How you doing, dude?
I'm doing good. How are you doing this morning?
Good, man. It's a pleasure to have you on here and an honor. If you want to kind of start off by giving us some insights into your beginnings and who you learned from and your little circle that you run in.
Yeah, for sure. I got my start at the in November of 2000. I was working at In-N-Out Burger at the time, and a friend of mine that I went to high school with, she called me and asked if I wanted to learn how to blow glass. Her sister had married a dude that distributed um, production pieces across the country, and yeah, I said yes, and so I went. I didn't realize then, but I'd be going, and I interviewed with the company Crush, who's a really big, um, distributor for uh, production pieces, and I got hired on, and I spent the first 2 years working with them. I learned underneath a guy named Steve Fish, who's still blowing glass. Um, he uh, he came from an area called Moscow, Idaho,
Hmm.
and this I guess there was like a little glass blowing scene going on up there at the time, and he ended up making production pieces for Crush in their catalog, and so Crush ended up moving him down to Southern California to open up like a manufacturing site, and that's where I came in as I was one of the people hired to start manufacturing these lines. And so he trained me, which was cool. I got paid to train, which is like really unheard of in this industry. So that was kind of cool to make a wage while I was learning. And then my commitment was 2 years with them. And once that was done, I went and worked for Tommy Chong for a couple of months. But I had come from a place that was really quota heavy to keep your job. Like we had to make 30 to 40 pieces a day to stay employed.
Wow.
And then you go over to a place like Tommy Chong's, which is paid per piece. So it was a very different mentality. Um, and so like my numbers were really, really huge, which didn't set well with the other blowers that were working there at the time. Because like once orders were filled, they were filled. And so needless to say, I didn't last too long over there with the with the other blowers complaining that I was taking away their work, which is totally understandable. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
looking back in hindsight, like there's no hard feelings or anything like that. Like I met a lot of cool people and I totally understand their point of view. But so I just ended up going back to Crush. They were eager to have me back. And then I worked there until the Operation Pipe Dreams happened and everything kind of got shut down. It was really weird because like right before that happened, I had like this nagging sensation in the back of my head that like, hey, yo, you got to buy your own equipment. All these people are sitting around working for these guys. You should probably invest in your own equipment. You should invest in your own equipment. And so like literally the week that my stuff arrived, that's when Operation Pipe Dreams happened. And so one day I'm sitting at the desk, and the day that all went down, like Crush never got raided or anything like that, but it was enough with everything else that was going on for them to kind of shut down for a while. So I got tapped on the shoulder one day while I'm working and told, shut down, it's over, go home.
Shit.
And so that was it. Yeah, I got dicked out of my last paycheck for a week, which I was bitter about for a while. But then in the scheme of life, like it doesn't matter. I got a trade that, and I was the only one that I worked with that saved up and bought his own equipment, which was really cool. Because once that happened, I went to Alabama for like a year just to kind of woodshed and live on the cheap. And then around 9 months after moving to Alabama, I started getting calls from other companies that were back here in SoCal that had started back up. And so I ended up going and making my own lines for another distribution company called Dynamite. And I worked with them for like the next probably 4 years, I think until like 2007 was when I started to get really, really burnt out on the production work. You're making 100 of the same piece every week. I had like 32 designs in the Dynamite catalog. So I did have a variety of things to make, but it was the same thing over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah, man. I did that same shit for about 12 years. So,
Yeah, so
I know
I
what
mean,
it's all
there's
about.
absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's a very steady paycheck.
Yeah.
Production's a good way to go if you're looking to have a steady paycheck. But I was getting burnt out creatively and artistically, and around that time is when I discovered the online communities of like the Melting Pot and glasspipes.org and Toke City and those places. And well, it wasn't Toke City yet. It was glasspipes.org and the Melting Pot I started to like get active on. And I was nobody. I came out with the name Lurch around that time. Um, and no one had heard of me. No one had known me. A lot of the people that you see, come up in crews, which is normal. Like they're friends, they were blowing glass together, and they come up and they've kind of come up as a group. This studio, these people are at that studio. They came up together, and I was just like totally crewless. But I did have knowledge, and I started to be active on the melting pot and help people out. And like I started to get paid attention to, I guess, by some of the known artists at the time. And and so I was making a name for myself on that website, just being helpful, being normal, not being a dick. It's not hard to do, people. It's
Exactly.
you just and so there were certain people I started communicating with on that site, and then I discovered glasspipes.org. And man, when I discovered the headies and stuff that people were making, I literally felt like I had been kicked in the stomach for a good month. Like I felt sick to my stomach. I was looking at my own work, which was nowhere near what these people were doing. And then I started reading these people's biographies, and like they'd only been blowing glass for 2 to 3 years, and they're making these sick pieces. And I just felt like I was totally worthless. And I felt like I didn't have skills, and I felt miserable for like a month. Like I really, really beat myself up over it. And every day I'd go online and look at these pieces and just feel worse and worse and worse. And then one morning I woke up and I was like, this is doing you no good. You're just beating yourself up over, something you can't control right now. Why don't you write some of these artists you like, emails and see if you can't learn? And so I did. And Yushin was one that his work I'd always visit his page and go through his pieces. And so I ended up writing him a letter. I was like, hey, dude, I really like your work. I'd like to learn. I've been doing this low end production forever. I'm sick to my stomach over it. And he wrote me back. He's like, yeah, I'd be willing to teach you. This is what I charge per day. I'm in Berkeley. Come on up. Let's do this. So I took a private, I think it was 4 days from Eugene. He let me crash on the floor of his bedroom. He didn't even know who I was. Like,
That's
it was
awesome.
really cool. You know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
just meet someone totally cool. Um, anything I wanted to learn, he showed me. He showed me how to make my own color tubing. He showed me how to like wig-wag up stuff and reverse them and stack patterns. And, a lot of my style now goes back to that, goes back to what Eugene showed me. And I've since taken lessons from other artists and progressed my craft. But it all goes back to Yushin. And it was shortly after learning the headies and from Yushin and starting to work on my patterns and trying to get those cleaner. That like Nathan Myers happened to be in Southern California, and through the melting pot I saw that, and I was like, hey dude, if you got time, come by. My house is here in this town called Parablossom. That's where I was living at the time. And he wrote me back. He's like, if I were to throw a rock over these mountains I'm looking at right now, I would hit where you're at. So I'm gonna come through tomorrow. And so he ended up coming through to my house. He stayed the night. He showed me some stuff. We worked in my garage. And so I've been really lucky that either through lessons or through meeting the other artists, especially early on when no one knew who I was, that these people were willing to take the time and give me some hints or just help me out along the way. And I'm like, every year I try to make sure to show my gratitude. I'm not one of those that every piece I make, I got to give props to all the people that came before me or anything like that. But I feel compelled to, around the time of my anniversary, to definitely publicly thank those people who have directly helped me out in my journey in art and in my career.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah,
So
it's important. And it's like I like hearing, I hear the word luck thrown around a lot, but it seems like you have a drive, you have a passion for what you do, and you also had a skill set based on what you had before you met Yushin and Nate Myers, so it's cool. Like, I wonder if those guys would have taken you under their wing, or if you would have even reached out to them, having that confidence, because you have to have some kind of confidence to, at that time, to contact Yushin up, So, it makes you
well, the
wonder.
thing was is I didn't know because I was so new to this side of the industry. I just dealt with like production companies, and I really didn't know who Yushin was in the scheme of things. So, in my own like naivety, I guess, like being naive,
Hmm.
I just didn't. I just was like, what's the worst they can say is no. Like
Yeah,
that's
I agree.
always just throughout my life. Like the worst they can say is no. I always go for what I want. If there's something I want, I'm gonna try for it. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. But I'm gonna try. I'm not one to sit around going, man, I really wish I had given it a shot.
Yeah.
I'd rather just like get the no and have the rejection or fail than to wonder. because a lot of times you don't fail, a lot of times you do succeed. So, yeah, I didn't know that Eugene was down to teach. He had just started teaching people as far as I can remember. I think I was his second student. He had taught a dude named Frankie Hess right before me.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was just happened to be the right time. It seems like I've been in the right time in the right place a lot with this industry,
Yeah, it's
you
pretty
know?
sweet. Yeah, it sounds like it. Hell yeah. So, do you teach now yourself at all? Do you teach classes?
I have taught some classes. I've taught a few people privately on one-on-one lessons, and then I did my first group class a few months ago at Pacific Art Class, and that was the first time I got to teach. I think I had 5 students all at once, and that was a lot different than teaching one-on-one. I
Yeah, for
actually
sure.
learned a lot in teaching the group as opposed to one-on-one. I just show my stuff and I'm working with a student. With the group, I was showing them techniques and it was a hands-on class. So then they were going and trying to do what I showed them themselves. And I'd end up having to fix a lot of their work. They'd come into problems that they made mistakes or whatever, were having trouble controlling the glass and they need help. And so I got to like fix a lot of other people's mistakes, um, which was cool because I'm used to making my mistakes. I know where my eye goes and what I need to look for and pay attention for, the things that I overlook. I'm fully aware of the things that, I need to double check for my own work. But to go and have to undo someone else's stuff where you're just being handed something that's a mess and you don't know how they got to that point, I learned a lot, and that was really, really awesome. And my students did great. They all picked up the techniques I was showing them. Um, it was an awesome experience, but that was something I hadn't had before, where you just, hey, help me over here, and then you walk to someone's
Yeah.
bench and they hand this piece of glass.
Too funny.
I do, yeah, I do enjoy teaching. For sure, I plan on doing some more classes this year. I'm in talks with a couple of studios up on the West Coast to do some classes, and I'm hoping that they all line up so that way I can just kind of like road trip and tour.
Yeah,
Be
man.
kind of nice.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, something I think like where I'm at now. It's between doing the podcast and what have you, and I've taught a lot of people over the years, but like right now, my passion I'm feeling really is to educate and teach classes, and besides promoting and talking about the business side of stuff and sharing stories. But I love to see the growth. I love having a new student coming into my studio and being completely freaked out to even turn the torch on, and then like 3 days later, they're like they've been doing this their whole life. It's a neat,
That's
it's
nice.
neat. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
I've
neat.
definitely. I know there's quite a few people that blow glass today that they'll say they got their first experience on a torch in one of my studios because I've never been afraid to be hanging out with my friends or with people and they watching me blow glass and I'll look at them and say, you want to try to melt something? And it's neat to watch people's faces light up and really, really get into it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So with your studio set up now, are you at your house or do you share a space?
Um, right now I work out of the Goose Fire Gallery.
Okay.
That would be considered my main studio. And so it's a shared space. It's a pretty well-known studio here on the West Coast. I work with Hoobs, Nerve, D-Rec, Boom Falaise, Lamar, Splinter, Utopian Society, Montoya Glass. There's a few of us that are out of that spot. And
Nice.
yeah, it's really nice. And it's been kind of a magnet for other artists that are traveling through the area. Um, they come through and they work. So it's been a great opportunity to work with a lot of people I might not otherwise have the chance to. We've had like Matt Robertson come through, Slinger, Gasp, Kind. The list goes on. Gonzo. There's been tons and tons of artists. JOP, Icky. Um, yeah, I could probably spend a half hour naming people that have come through to work. Um, and it's awesome. Like Chalice, Chalice is an event that's here in Southern California that a lot of the glass artists go to. And so like the week out at Chalice was crazy. We were completely packed every bench was full with,
That's awesome.
guest artists. And yeah, it's really awesome.
Yeah, I've
So,
actually never been there myself, and it's one of my on my list because I've actually never been to California, which is kind of crazy, but living in Florida my
oh, you
whole
should
life.
get out here. There's
Yeah, I need
tons
to.
of to work with out here.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, no, it'd be a lot of fun. I the setup for Goose Fire. Do they have like a windows for the public to see what's going on in there? Or is it
Yeah, we have a gallery space where they sell the glass art out of, which is beautiful. And then there's four giant windows that look into the studio space. And so you can see whoever happens to be there working, you can see them work for a while. Not all of the desks, you have a clear view of what's going on, but you can definitely see people that, the glass is being melted, things are going on. We have a 650-gallon saltwater reef tank in the middle of our studio,
fuck yeah?
which is just like it's just beautiful. You can see it from the gallery, and then when you're back in the studio, it's incredible. And that's like Hoobs's baby. It's his pet project, and he
Too cool.
spends just as much time on that tank as he does blowing glass. It's insane the hours that tank takes up, and it's incredible though. I mean, he's got that thing awesome.
Hell yeah, yeah. I want to get him on the show. I love his work. It's the technical side. He's kind of innovating wise has changed a lot for the industry, which is kind of fun. Seeing that style that he does.
Yeah, he's awesome. He happens to be. I split my time with my living situation because Goose Fire is about on a good traffic day an hour and a half away from my house, and so to commute there every day would be unrealistic. So I actually I rent a room from Hoobs down in Huntington Beach, and I stay most of the week while I'm working down there, and then I come up to the mountains where my house is to hang out with my family. So it's a pretty it's a pretty neat um, working situation environment because it's all glass when I'm down there. My roommates are glass blowers, and it's all about the studio and the long hours at the studio, and then I'm able to get away and be in the mountains with my family
Yeah, man, that's
for a
interesting.
couple of days each. Yeah, it's not ideal for I think everybody or like the what society I guess comes to expect, but it
Right.
totally works for us.
Yeah, I
So
understand that, man. Because like I working over at Disney, it's an hour and a half one way for me to go out there when I'm working over there. And when I was there full time, I was doing like 5 to 7 days in a row, and that I was like, I wanted to be home. It was like I want to go sleep in my own bed, and so I did. So I did that round trip freaking commute, man, for like almost 2.5 years full time there. It was
yeah, it's
crazy.
rough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I took advantage of the time on the road with like books on tape and podcasts and different things like that, but yeah, there was definitely many days of being on the road like, man, fuck this drive.
yeah, that's it. It eats away your life, if you're not um, good with your time. It can really just eat away. I did commuting for a while when I was learning how to blow glass, and it was only an hour each way, but every day that adds up.
Yeah.
And so when I had the opportunity to work at Goose Fire, that was one of the things that was a concern was the drive. And I mean, on a good traffic, if I have to drive through LA to get to Goose Fire from where I'm at in the mountains. And so you hit the same freeway in the wrong time, and it can be a 3 hour, or more drive. So it just became one of those things where, yeah, I got the offer to come to Goose and I got the offer to rent a room and I took it.
Yeah, man. And it's cool too because it goes along the importance too of like of being supported by your family, like not only your friends and the guys you work around with and gals, but like if you have a wife and kids, it's like it's such an because it's the glass art. I mean, just as a small business owner in general, money isn't always consistent, especially when you're away for that long. It's got to it's not always easy, but it's to have the support that you have. If there's no other way you could do that. Which is incredible.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm definitely really lucky to have the family that I have. I've got three kids and an awesome wife, and um, yeah, I couldn't do it without the support, that's for sure.
How old are your kids?
I have a 6-year-old son. I have a almost 3-year-old daughter, and then I have a daughter that's turning one tomorrow.
Oh wow, hell yeah.
Yeah, so I got three and hopefully no more. I love them, but man, I I mean you have kids, so
Yeah, man, two's
Um,
enough for me.
yeah, and I mean my wife holds it down. Yeah, without her there would be no Lurch glass, that's for sure.
Yeah, she's a freaking soldier. Holy shit. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So what when you're out of the torch and you're home with the family, what do you guys do for your extracurricular activities?
When I'm home with the family, we like to The kids love it if I chase them around the house. We have pool noodle lightsabers that they like to lightsaber fight me with.
Hell yeah.
Uh, they love playing board games. We like going to the park. I live out in the high desert, and so um, it's kind of a rural area. It's we're not in a neighborhood like you imagine. Then we're all on like 2 acre or more lots. So we don't have like the neighborhood kind of thing where the kids have neighborhood friends to play with and that kind of stuff. But we do take them up to Wrightwood, which isn't far. It's a city that's a little bit higher up the mountains. We're in the foothills, and then the mountains are right next to us. And Wrightwood has a snowboard park and has hiking trails and has all sorts of things to do. And so we like to go up there as a family and
Nice.
spend time.
Yeah, that's too much fun. Yeah, especially now with
Yeah,
Christmas being over. I was going through your Instagram the other day and seeing all your Star Wars posts and the excitement with the going the kids and stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's amazing how a movie, from our generation can now become like part of our kids' generation and really tie a lot of stuff together. It's kind of fun. It's a lot of fun.
yeah, it was really cool, especially with the Star Wars, because it was a big deal in my family. I remember being a kid in line for Return of the Jedi on opening day with my mom. And so when the Phantom Menace came out in the late 90s, I took my mom on opening day to repay her. I saw, the rest of the prequel, each movie on opening day, and then, a few times at the theater. And with this one, because my son was so into Star Wars, and then we've been hyping up the movie for like the last year, he had never been to a movie theater, and his birthday is on Christmas Day. And so we told him, for his birthday, we were going to take him to the movies. And so for his first movie theater experience, we took him to an IMAX 3D showing of the Star Wars film. And,
You've ruined them.
I know, right? But how awesome. And he just sat there. He didn't say a word. He held my hand on one side. He held my wife's hand on the other side. And occasionally you'd feel him jump and squeeze, as the action got intense or whatever. But I have to tell you, he wanted me to read the words, that
Yeah, at the beginning.
the words in the
Yeah.
beginning, yeah, the little summary of what's going on, and I started to read the words, and man, I got all choked up remembering my mom doing that to me. It was kind of weird, and it was cool. It was really cool. I
Yeah,
like
man.
the kids are awesome.
Yeah, dude, it's the best, and it's like I don't know. I don't know where I'd be without my kids. It's like would I be out wandering the woods somewhere or dead on the side of the road or some shit?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
like what the fuck.
I mean that's and you love them incredibly. Like I
Yeah,
can't explain it. They're amazing.
yeah, it's good stuff. Hell yeah, dude. So I guess with that, what kind of torch you work on?
I work on a GTT Mirage. Before that, I had a GTT Phantom, and before that, for like the first 8 years that I blew glass, I used a little National 3A hand torch that was duct taped to my bench.
Beautiful. Hell yeah. You hear that, guys? Anybody new out there? It is never. It's not, I mean, seriously, it's not a bad thing at all. I started on a minor bench burner, but to start off on a small torch and learn your craft is the way to go. Because next thing you know, you're working on a big ass GTT. But it takes
Yeah,
like six
and
to eight
I
years to get there.
well, I mean, definitely, I think that I could have progressed faster if I had a larger torch at some point, but to learn on the National was not a bad thing at all. You can make some pretty good sized pieces on them. Fuming's way easier on a torch like that than
Yeah.
on a GTT, although I've got my fuming down on a GTT now. But yeah, I mean, now that I'm on my Mirage, I don't think I'd go back to the hand torch, as a main torch. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I really love the Mirage that I have.
Yeah, man. I've been working on a CC now, my Carlisle, for 15 years now. I think I've had it for maybe a little longer than that.
Yeah, those are great torches too. I have a little bit of experience on those, and those are awesome torches.
Yeah, but man, I've been working on a GTT lately, and it's like I'm ready. It's
It
time to
does
take the step.
hotter quicker.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird, man. It's such, and for those that are listening that don't understand, it's like the idea that the penetration of the heat gets the molecules heated up rapidly in a faster, more focused spot, so the glass literally gets hotter faster. But it's weird, man, because it's like with the Carlisle, the glass is like a gradual heat. Where like with the GTTs, it's like it takes a second, and then all of a sudden it's like boom, it's fucking it's
Yeah.
out of control.
Yeah, it gets soupy quick.
It's
That was
crazy.
one thing I noticed too when I first switched over to the fandom. It was like the stiff, 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 then soup.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's neat though, and I'm really curious to see like with now that Bethlehem and other companies are coming out with their triple and quadruple mixes, and like what the hell the torch is going to be like. If it's going to be like the rig where it's gone from like an 18 mil female down to a 10 mil back to a 14, are we going to be going from these little tiny torches to big torches? Now we're going to have like these small torches. It's like kind of interesting, like the cell phones. It's kind of weird. I'm kind
Yeah.
of curious to see where it's all going to go because like to have a smaller, really hot torch would be freaking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Portability wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, all of the companies are coming out with definitely new cool innovations. We've got a couple of the GTT torches that run on the compressed air at the studio now.
Nice.
And I haven't gotten to work on one yet, but they seem pretty cool.
Heck yeah. Are they more
Yeah.
conserving on oxygen or they just get hotter faster?
It changes the flame. It makes the flame softer, more like a Herbie
Okay.
than a driving GTT, it seems. But like I said, I haven't gotten to play on one myself, but it does seem pretty cool. I'm eager to.
Heck yeah. What kind of kilns you guys got in there?
Oh man, we have everything. I personally run. I have a Paragon SC2. It's like a little bead kiln.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I also have a AIM. I think it's called a Humboldt. It's like 17 by 17 by 15. It's like a big kiln. I run both of those. We have even bigger kilns than that, and yeah, we run the gauntlet. We have Paragons and Aims and Scuts. We have all of the brands. We have Crucibles. We dip our own color. Um, yeah, it's too hard to say what it's more
Yeah, I'm
of what
sure.
kilns don't we have.
So in that kind of
Yeah.
environment, then, so do you guys like all like share costs, or do you rent your bench space? Like, how do you guys go about like, if you all going to run a batch, in a furnace pulls type stuff? Like, how do you guys go about coordinating that whole situation?
Well, as far as bench space goes, we um, pay a flat rate for a bench space, and that includes our electricity and oxygen and gas use. And then as far as the color and stuff goes, usually you just buy your own um, cullet. So most of the time it's Nerve and Hoobs that they're buying the cullet, and so they dip out the color. And if you help them out, usually they break you off for your time. They'll kick you down with some color, or they'll sell it to you too. So
Cool.
it makes it easy for us if we see something and they've got enough of it. Then it's like, hey, can I get a pound of that? So also at Goose Fire, they sell raw materials. So a lot of the colors that get dipped out, Goose Fire ends up, I'm not sure how they work it out, but obviously they buy a bunch of it and then they retail it out to the public. So you can get your tools and supplies and stuff right from the gallery,
Rad.
which
Hell
is
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a cool man. It's such a cool environment, especially again like the circle that you have in there of those different variations of artists. It's like it's pretty neat. It's cool influences.
Yeah, it's neat. We all have, our own styles that we go to. We've got killer guys on the lathe. So if you need a tube put together or you want to collab on a tube, it's easy to hit those guys up if they're not super busy. Yeah, I've been at the shop and I've had Derek, Derek yell across, "Hey, Lurch, do you want to collab? I got this Sherlock ready for attachments." And he'll literally just bring over a shaped Sherlock that he wants me to put marbles and horns and let me do my thing to. So collabs like that are a lot of fun. I've made some really cool stuff with almost every. I don't think there's anybody I haven't worked with at the studio yet. I've collabed with Boom, with Lamar, with Nerve, with Splinter, with Utopian Society. With all of them I've collabed with, and some of the stuff we make are really rad.
Yeah, it is. I bet. Hell yeah. So in terms of your sales for yourself, how do you go about marketing your work?
I have my Instagram, I have my Facebook, I have my glasspipes.org, which I haven't really updated in a while. I should get more active on that. Yeah, just pretty much online. I just share pictures of my work. The stores I deal with, they, call me or I hit them up. I don't really have too many production lines, so to say. Like even the stuff that would be considered production, I try to make less than 100 of a year, so that way it becomes more collectible. Or if you do see it, it's not like, oh, I'm going to see that next week. You might want to pick it up. Uh, So there are certain items that I let stores place orders on, like my Lurch rigs, slides. I'm usually always producing because after all these years, I still like making glass on glass slide. A lot of people still collect them, and so
Yeah.
uh, I make my pendants. I make those are the types of things that stores can order. But most of the other things I make one ofs. Like if you see something that I post online, stores know to hit me up direct. And a lot of times, what they'll do is they'll see a cool bubbler I made, hit me up about that bubbler, and then build an order around that. Like, what else do you have available? I can send them pictures, or they want to order some slides or some other rigs or, things that I produce. Some of my Sherlocks I do mass produce, so, they can order and place orders for multiples of those. But, or, I have collectors that hit me up direct occasionally too. I don't really do a whole lot of like custom work to where the public can hit me up and just, hey, I want this and this and this. There are a few individuals that I've worked with over the past couple of years that I do customs for, but they're established clients. We haven't had issues with doing that kind of work in the past, where a lot of times what happens is the vision that a customer has in their head of what they want you to make and what you make doesn't line up. And so um, there ends up being problems with that. So I try to avoid doing a lot of custom work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Actually, I'm in the been probably the past year and a half. We've been developing a website that's for customizing glass. That's going to take all that shit out of it, so they can actually see what it is that they're wanting to have made. So it's
Nice. That
yeah,
would be an awesome thing to have.
yeah, yeah, man. It's been it's a like I don't know code or computer shit, and seeing my buddy doing this stuff, it's mind blowing what they can do with numbers on a computer.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah. I'm not very computer savvy myself. I feel spending the time in the studio that we do, we kind of, I don't know what's popular on TV right now. I watch maybe an hour of TV a week. I hear people talk about these shows that I have no idea. And then computer stuff like Lamar is really talented with the computers. He knows a lot about it, and I try to follow him when he talks. And I don't know much about computers. I'm not very computer literate, but
yeah,
I can make some cool stuff out of glass occasionally. And
yeah, man. That's all that
um,
matters. Take
so
some
yeah,
pictures and put them on Instagram.
yeah. I mean, I can do that, no problem.
Yeah. Speaking of pictures, so do you guys have a photographer in the studio that comes by and takes pictures for you guys at all, or do you do most of your own
um,
stuff?
I take most of my own pictures. Goose Fire has a photographer that takes the pictures that they have of the pieces in the gallery and that they get for the gallery, and then for the shows that we have in the gallery, they have a photographer that does that. And then a lot of the guys out of the studio use Alex, and I think his I'm trying to remember his Instagram handle, but he does a lot of the pictures for Hot Breath magazine. I think it's Area SoCal or something like that. I probably have it wrong though, but he takes a lot of the pictures for Hot Breath magazine, and then he does a lot of Hoob's personal photos of glass, and he does a lot of the times we'll have him come by, and then we'll give him the pieces while he's at the studio. He might spend 2 or 3 days at the studio just photographing our glass for us.
Cool. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. So do you ever do any kind of trade shows at all?
Yeah, I've done lots of trade shows. I've done AGE is the one that I do the most. I've done champs um, for their glass games. I've competed in that. Um, I've done a lot of the AGE demos over the years. I've done AGE in Denver, but most of the ones I just do out in Vegas because it's not too far a drive from my house, just a couple hours. And I always enjoy the trade shows. Always,
Heck
they're
yeah.
always fun.
Do you find they're more fun just for the entertainment value of it, or is it like do you have actual luck with your orders and selling glass there?
Well, I don't take orders there, so for me, I just go and sell what glass I brought with me. If I have a booth,
Mm-hmm.
just until it's sold out. Um, so I know for a lot of my friends that do take orders and have production lines, it's very lucrative for them. For me, I'm always happy to just sell the glass that I have made. When I get an order, it's like sometimes it's hard to get it done just because I have to make it at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
So. But to go and to party and hang out with my friends, that's where the real, because most of us are hermits, we hang out with each other. It's all, if we do hang out, it's usually with our shopmates or whatever, and it's just a small tight circle, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have a whole bunch of other people across the country doing the same thing with either themselves or their circle, and then we're all in Vegas, and some of those people are really, like, I consider good friends of mine that I might talk to once or twice a month. But at Vegas, it's like no time has passed. And um, yeah, it's awesome. It's like a big reunion every 6 months of a bunch of artistic hermits that we all have our own quirks and personalities and things that we like to do. And Vegas is a perfect playground for
Yeah, it
us.
sounds like that's something I've always found unique about our industry. Like like you're saying, it's like we all have our personalities and stuff, and we're all also semi introverted, and it's such an interesting dynamic to have the personalities that we have being creative and wanting to get our shit out there, but then we're very like want to stay in our cave. It's kind of like you're saying,
Yeah.
it's unique.
Yeah, it really is. I feel really lucky to be a part of this whole yeah, this whole thing.
Yeah,
I think
hell
it's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it is. So after Operation Pipe Dreams, so you basically went on. You're at that point where you had your setup on, for yourself. Did you like go ahead and start your own production line, or how'd you go about kind of getting your foot back on the ground after that whole situation went down?
Well, I had my own equipment. I was yeah, I moved to Alabama for like 9 months. I had a little studio in my garage at the house I was renting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I kind of woodshedded, but looking back, I should have taken way more advantage at the time I had than I did. Like, I probably was lazier than I should have been
All
while I
right.
was in Alabama, looking back at how I am now. But I guess for at the time, I mean, that was just me. And and so yeah, I did a little bit of woodshedding and practicing, but I didn't spend near as much time on. I was almost intimidated by all the new equipment and not having a boss over me telling me what to do. It's kind of like having complete freedom from having absolutely no creative freedom was almost, yeah, like intimidating. Like I'd go into the studio and not really know what to make.
Yeah, it's the worst feeling in it. It's like being
Yeah,
a writer having a blank piece of paper and a pen in front of you, and you're like,
yeah,
what the fuck? Where do I
it's like
start?
exactly like a writer's block. And so um yeah, I probably could have worked but I didn't know what to practice, or I wasn't exposed to a whole lot other than the production lines we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I really didn't know. I'm a person that if I see someone do it, I can figure it out or recreate it or that kind of thing. But to sit there and try to, at that time, now I can look at a finished piece and reverse engineer it pretty good. But at that time, I didn't know enough about the medium. In fact, one of the things that really irritated me about where I came up, and it's like probably the only thing I can really look back and still like it irks me, was they taught us the wrong terms for things.
Mm.
And I don't know if they did it on purpose or now with the hindsight, maybe they just didn't know the right terms. Either, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when I would run into other glass blowers at that time, especially in the early phase, I'd run into in SoCal, there was a couple other production companies that were big, like the System and uh, what else? Can't. I'm drawing a blank. But there was a couple other big production companies. 5150. There's a couple other
Oh
studios
yeah,
that
yeah,
were
yeah.
pumping out a lot of pieces, and occasionally you'd run into the blowers at places in SoCal, and they'd be guys, my own age, and you try to talk to them, and they would talk, and it was like a foreign language was coming. I'd have no idea what they were talking about, and then I'd try to like talk about my work, and they'd look at me like I was stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I went to Chong's, that's when I discovered that we had been taught the wrong terms for a lot of things, because these guys were talking to me and saying the same stuff I had heard other people use, and then it dawned on me what was going on, and I remember being really really upset about that, like almost, yeah, like they would purposely hindering. I don't know. At the time, I felt really frustrated about it. Now looking back, I really don't know. Um, the motivation. Maybe it was so we wouldn't be able to share the secrets that they were teaching us, or maybe
Right.
they just really didn't know the right terms at the times. But it doesn't matter now. It was frustrating back then.
Yeah, man, I hear you.
Um,
Yeah, it's important to have that. Like, 'cause it's part of my goal with the show too is like kind of creating some kind of like across the board, same terminology you use, same definitions, pronunciations, like all that stuff. And it seems like the more our community grows, it's happening without my show, even
Yeah,
just like in just
absolutely.
naturally, the words, because like you're saying, like some people may call soda pop and pop soda, and some people call it Coke, but we all know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But with glass terms, maybe not. It's like there's so many different
Yeah,
ways of explaining something. It's fascinating.
I think yeah, I think with the glass, I think yeah, I really don't know if we were purposely taught the wrong things or and also with the whole Coke analogy, I mean, that's been around for so long that we all know now
Mm-hmm.
what the different terms mean, but this glass thing's kind of new.
Yeah, for sure. Thinking too, man, like back on your journey, mine as well, and other artists who I've talked to and know that have been doing this for as long as we have, comparing them to the new generation that's like maybe 3 to 5 years in. It's we really didn't have the educational classes and programs, and like nobody wanted to share anything for years unless, like you're saying, you work for a production studio where they are teaching you because they
Yeah.
want you to work for them. But other than that, like
Yeah.
we struggled and had a slower progression because we didn't have the people out there now like that are teaching these classes and whatever. And because I'm in the same boat, dude. Like I was, just I'd go experiment and learn techniques, and if I didn't like that technique, I would just move on to the next one until I found my groove in a sense. In my because I think I had like 25 items in my production line I was doing. I also sold glass to Dynamite, and I had a couple different other distributors too at that time.
Nice.
And yeah, man, it was fun. And but once I got into, like you're saying, like once the head scene like really got going and glasspipes.org started, and I started seeing like Jason Lee and Marcel and Scott Deppy and Esh, and I mean like all there's a lot of guys out there, or not Esh, but Ease and Darby Home, like all those guys out there that were like who the fuck are these guys? This is crazy. I suck.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah, yeah, it
beat
was
yourself
really
up.
yeah, you do, but then yeah, you either move on and try to do what you want or you just let that stop you and um I'm not one to let that stop me.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
in the
you
same
name
boat.
some of those names like Darby, that's another name him and his family have been incredible to me over the years. When I first came up as Lurch, he was one I ran into, and he was one that would actually come into Crush when I worked there, and he would like kind of show like he was the one who showed us how to write our names in glass and implode it
Cool.
and that kind of stuff. He was always one to share, knowledge and see what we would do with it. And so, I developed a friendship with him early on as Lurch, and I would bug him when I passed through Oregon. I'd always stop by or wherever he was if I could stop by and see him, and I'd have him look at my pieces and man, I'd bug him, tell me what's wrong with it, Darby, what am I missing? Because in my limited knowledge of what to look for in headpieces, the things that I was focusing on weren't I was missing a lot of stuff in my own work, you know what I mean, that needed to
Yeah, yeah.
be like tightened up and cleaner and stuff like that. And to get him to really critique my work was difficult. And but Leela, his wife, and she's been around heady glass for forever. She was easier to get to critique my work because early on I told her I was like, I'm not wanting you to pick up, it's not an ego thing for me, I really want to get better. It's not like I'm gonna, oh, they think my work's terrible or anything like that. I want to know, I want to get good, I want to be good at this. And they would never ever ever felt like they were picking on my work at all when they would tell me. I remember Leela one time looking at my horns and she's like, do you have a hand torch? And I'm like, no. She's like, you should get one. And I'm like, why? She's like, you see this? This needs to be melted in smoother. You see this? And it was just like pointing out the little things that I was missing that, I mean, really, when it's done and you see piece A compared to piece B, it's like, whoa, I can totally see why this looks way better than this just at first glance.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm always been one that when I run into like that family sticks out as a really strong example because I've had a lot of interactions with them where I was able to show them my work and ask for critiques and stuff. But um, I've never shied away from or get defensive if another artist, point out a flaw in my work because I take it as like, cool, I want to make it look better too. Maybe the other artists are doing it to be, rude or whatever, but I never take it that way. And I've never really felt like anybody was purposely setting out when they critiqued my work to be like that. Like I want to be good. So
Yeah, man, it's
Um,
huge. It's such an important thing to have your glass critiqued and to be able to take your ego and put it aside and be able to deal with what someone's telling you, especially someone that's knowledgeable like that. You know, it's like I can see
yeah,
going to a friend and they're like, "Yeah, this thing fucking sucks," and you're like, "Dude, you can't even turn my torch on. Your opinion doesn't matter to me." But if you go to like a Darby Home or a Eugene, I mean, you obviously want them to criticize. You know, even if it's the constructive criticism, not being a dick about it, but it's important. You
yeah, and
gotta
I've
have that.
never felt like that. Never,
Yeah,
never felt like anyone was being a dick when they've critiqued my work.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah, yeah, it's important. Like you're saying, it's very important to get that if you want to progress. I mean, because I know the things that I tend to make mistakes on, the things that I'm focusing that I don't make that mistake while I'm doing the work, but I might totally have pushed something else out of my mind while I'm focusing on that, something that I don't see my eye misses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you
And
mean.
so, yeah.
I was like the other day I was working on this piece and I was dropping some down stems and I always heat my bass up first and then I drop my down stem, clean everything up, and then I go back and just a quick reheat before I go back in my kiln. So there's no thermal shock or anything, any issues. And just I was in a great mood. I was getting my groove on with my music and shit, and I put it back in the kiln before reheating it, and I'm like starting the next piece, and I heard the chunky glass crack in the kiln, sound.
Ah.
And I was like, "Fuck!" It's like you get so focused, but then you can like just get unfocused for such a split second, and you fuck yourself in the end.
Yeah, it happens. And I mean, and sometimes, I don't know if it happens to you when you're working, but you'll be working and then all of a sudden you'll get a real strong feeling that you either need to reheat it now or it's going to crack later.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, or you let it pass and then you put it in the kiln and you hear that crack and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I try to always pay attention to those intuitions. And I
Yeah.
recently got a Bunsen burner, which, man, has totally changed my work, the way I do assembly and all of that, because I have, now this huge flame. Even if I'm not working the piece in it and it's on, it has a wall of flame behind it now that used to be colder air. And so it's slowing down the cooling of the piece, and then I can go right into that Bunsen flame and reheat it up if the piece is cold and not worry about it cracking. So now when I take things out of the kiln, it's getting warmed up in the Bunsen, especially if I'm doing attachments. I can do all of my attachments at once. I don't just have to do one or two in one little area. I can be over here working and then decide to come over to the way other side of the piece and work and then go back because of that Bunsen. And I really, my ratio of losing pieces has gone down significantly.
Heck yeah, that's a great tip.
Highly recommend it. Highly recommend getting a Bunsen burner.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was last year, maybe a little bit longer than that. I saw when Rob Morrison and Preston Hanna put a little video up of their class they were teaching, and it was all about the use of a Bunsen burner. And I know Rob Morrison was even saying like it was amazing. Like once he started using one, it's the same thing. It's like going from not having a hand torch to having a hand torch. So it's
I would
it's
say
fascinating.
absolutely. That's a great analogy because it's a piece of equipment that you didn't have before that now you would be lost without.
Yeah, dude. I don't know what
And
I would do without mine.
Preston was yeah, Preston was the one who I was able to learn a lot of the Bunsen. We've done a couple of collabs, and yeah, I mean, definitely the confidence goes up, especially now if you're working and you hear that deadly tink and crack and you feel it in the blow tube. Now you can just find it and get that in the Bunsen burner and work that crack right out. It's not even an issue. A lot of things that, and it's not like I have a lot of pieces crack. It sounds really bad, but those pieces that would crack that like that is like a kill crack. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's a crack that the piece is gone. Those aren't so much those cracks that used to be kill cracks aren't really kill cracks anymore with a Bunsen burner. You can really not sweat it and get it fixed.
Heck yeah, that's good to know. I need to get one. What kind do you use?
Yeah. I got the Carlisle Bunsen. It's a 4-jet Bunsen. I have a valve in the line so that way I can churn down the propane to it because the pressure I have coming out to my GTT is way too much for the Bunsen burner. And I also have some aluminum tape around the base to restrict the airflow in.
Okay.
Yeah, so the propane gets turned. It only takes propane, so it just has one line going to it. It sits on my bench, and I have that valve just barely cracked, and yeah, it's an awesome flame.
Does it draw air from like oxygen more or less, or air from the air around it to increase the
Yeah,
heat?
exactly. And so yeah, from the base of it, it draws the oxygen up through the ports with the propane to make the jet flame. And so I have aluminum tape around that base that's kind of restricted. how much oxygen can get up in there.
Neat. Yeah, man, I gotta get one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. So with your own personal business and stuff, do you do like, in terms of the business, do you do like your own accounting and bookkeeping and stuff, or does your wife help with that kind of shit, or do you have an accountant that you go through, or?
My wife handles most of that. We do it as a sole proprietorship
Yep.
through taxes. So I just keep records of my tools and glass and expenses, and then keep records of the money deposited and the checks I get, and PayPal. I accept PayPal for some things. So you got to focus that. I think she goes to a tax guy when taxes are due, to help.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the things I got to keep track of for her. My tools, gas, glass, rent, all of that stuff.
Heck yeah. Do you ever weigh out your scraps at the end of the week or at the end of the month?
No, I've never weighed out my scraps.
Yeah, you should, man. If you have a knockoff bucket, it's a tax write-off for its loss and
Oh,
garbage.
no kidding.
Yeah, it's something I preach all the time. Like I didn't know about it until I saw my accountant like 2 years ago, and we were talking about waste, and she's like, "Yeah, it's like just weigh out your scraps." So I always tell everybody, because I've got some PDFs I put together on a little Dropbox folder that people can go onto, and one of those is like a weekly log for your scraps, and you just like basically like weigh your bucket out empty, and then at the end of every Friday or whatever, just weigh that bucket and just do your math. You know how much glass you have, and it depends on how you work too. If you use a lot of color, or like myself personally, I'm mostly clear with color accents, so I have like an 80-20 ratio. So I've done like a basic mathematical formula to figure out how much estimated value is in the clear based on how much is in the color. And then you do some math and with the weight. It's kind of a way I have it. It's an easy setup. But
Nice.
yeah, you'd be amazed, man, how much it's. I mean, like I don't throw a lot of glass away, but it does add up. Like I pull points and stuff sometimes, and there's like all that shit adds up after a while. It sucks.
Yeah, yeah, I do a lot of color heavy work, so definitely interested in any way I can save money.
Yeah, it's important because it's like keeping track of mileage. Like I don't know if you could because when you commute to your job, when you commute to your studio, you're like like let me kind of back up. When I was doing my thing at Disney, I couldn't use my mileage to Disney because I was working for somebody else. But if I was going there to sell an order, I could use that mileage for taxes.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So you should be
Yeah, I
able
can
to.
keep a log of my sales trips for sure.
I think your commute too from your house to work. I think that commute also counts. I'd talk to your wife and have her ask the accountant because you might be able to get a depreciation on your vehicle also and then getting reimbursed on your mileage too. Because
Yeah.
you're actually going to work for yourself. If you had a job out there, it'd be a different story, but you don't. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly, because I have to drive to a studio to work out of.
yeah, just one more little thing to look at. I try to help everybody out.
Yeah, no,
Save
absolutely.
as much
Yeah, no,
money.
I appreciate it for sure. I'm definitely not a tax accountant guy, so
Yeah, me
any
neither,
tips
dude.
are appreciated.
Yeah, hell yeah. Do you pay quarterly taxes or do you guys just do an annual thingy?
We do annual.
Cool. Yeah, I recommend the quarterly just because it's easier to pay estimates and shit like that, and I have a big tax bill at the end of the year. But if it works for you, it works for you. Everybody's got their thing. The only issue you
Yeah,
sometimes
no,
can
so
run
far
into
we
is,
haven't had an issue.
do you guys find you ever get a penalty for not filing quarterly?
No, not at all.
Okay, cool. Because I know in some instances you have like if you have a small business, you can be penalized for not paying quarterly taxes. I think it depends on the state too, because like I don't have state taxes here, which is awesome.
Oh, that is nice. Yeah, we have state taxes here in California. It
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah, dude. California's a fucking mess, I'm sure. How you guys been dealing with that weather you all just had blow through there?
It was nice up at my house. We got snow, and then down at the beach, it was just rain.
Yeah, I saw like tornado warnings and shit in San Diego and all kind of crazy stuff going on.
Oh wow, I missed those.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. Like, so it's like 13 years or something like that since there's been anything like that in San Diego. It's like,
Oh wow.
yeah, shit's going
I know
crazy.
this is just I think the first storm that blew through. We're supposed to have them kind of coming in back to back to back.
Yeah, I
So,
heard too. Like they said, one of the cities there got as much rain in one day as they did in the entire month of January last year, which is,
oh wow.
yeah. So
I wasn't surprised because it was coming down pretty hard.
hell yeah. Hopefully it helps that drought out, man. It's crazy out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's really really bad out here.
Yeah, it sucks.
I Yeah, driving through the state, a lot of the places that I'd passed that, were rivers, they were no water running. And then um, up in the lakes up in Northern California, they were so low. Yeah, really depressing to see.
Yeah, I can imagine. Hell yeah, man. So, kind of moving forward, one of the reasons, besides loving your work and wanting to get you on the show, was I like how you do like to educate and share things. And your post you put up recently about your skin cancer thing, that your whatever skin issue that you had, and reinforcing how important it is to wear sunscreen and stuff. You want to kind of get into that a little bit and kind of share that with us?
Yeah, for sure. Like, excuse me. When I was a kid and stuff, I get sunburned a lot. We had a swimming pool in my backyard and things like that. So I'm sure that contributed to, what I was dealing with as well. But we are exposed to a ton of UV and IR light, and it's not good for your skin at all, especially for those of us that are fair complexion. I'm sure it's not good for those that have darker complexion, but I know for sure it's not good for us fair skin um, people. So I would get, the regular torch burn and stuff that we would deal with when you do tube pulls and things like that. And then one day I noticed, like, on my upper lip, like a spot that was like dry skin that wouldn't ever moisturize or go away. And then I had a spot on my ear that was the same. And like I would pick the one off of my ear and it might bleed a little bit, but then it would like scab over and then just turn into that same weird kind of like crusty skin. And so I kept thinking about it, like I should probably go get checked out. And so I was living in Oregon at the time in Grants Pass, and I made an appointment with a dermatologist, and I had to wait for like 3 months for this appointment, which was really weird. I thought anyway.
Oh
And
no,
like a
dude!
week
Mine
before,
was the same way. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I made
oh
one
no
with
no,
mine. It was the same. It was like 3 months to get into them.
okay, cool. Well, cool. Yeah, I had no idea. So I was like thinking but a week before, I have the appointment. I'm shaving my face, and then I noticed like this spot on the other side of my upper lip, like the other half of my face, um, and it was like a pimple or an ingrown hair or something like that. I had no idea. So I go to this appointment for these like crusty spots, and the dermatologist immediately sees this other thing, and she's like, "What's that? Is this what you're here for?" And I was like, "Oh no, that just happened shaving the other day. I think it's an ingrown hair." And she's like, "I'm not so sure. I want to biopsy that." And I was like, "Okay." And so she cut like a part of that off, and then she also cut a part of the crusty stuff off. And then I get a call like a week later from the doctor, and she's like, "Hey, you have basal cell carcinoma."
Jesus.
And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah." And it was that spot that I thought was the ingrown hair was actual skin cancer. And these crusty spots, they're like a pre-cancer, like a slow growing, like it's not cancer yet, but left alone for years and years and years, it's going to eventually turn into cancer. And so, yeah, so she made me another appointment, and then I'm in there, and they like inject my lip with a numbing thing, and then all of a sudden she's like burning and scraping, and then burning, and I could smell the burning flesh and scraping, and like she scrapes all that out of the basal cell carcinoma, and she does the same thing to my lip, and then to my ear. And then she gives me this cream to put on my face. She's like, "You got to wear this cream for a month. And what it's going to do is pull out all the other cells that are on your face that are changing, to let them know where lesions are going to." I have no idea what it is, but
Huh.
I wear this weird thing on my face, and like my face gets splotchy for like a month. And then they put on this other cream that like kills that all off and heals it. And, so yeah, I go about my business, and the part that was the basal cell carcinoma is like a white scar spot now on my lip, and then this other spot that she had burned and scraped, like just to the left of that, started to change. The skin's like getting dry and crusty again, and so I need to go back and get that checked out or reburned off or whatever. But now I'm in California, so I just got to make an appointment. But um, since I know that was like a little bit slow, the slow growing, I haven't been in a rush to go get. I just lag, is what it is. I'm lazy sometimes, to be honest here.
Yeah,
No one
I
likes to go to the doctor.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think men are the worst at it, but shit, man, definitely gotta stay on
Yeah.
top of
So
that.
anyway, yeah, the dermatologist told me, she found out that I was blowing glass in Oregon. There's tons of glass blowers, so it wasn't necessarily unheard of. She told me to start wearing a mineral-based sunblock, not a chemical one.
Mm-hmm.
And she said the SPF didn't necessarily need to be super high, like 15 was cool. Um, but it needed to be a mineral-based block, not a chemical one. Because I guess the mineral ones don't break down. They stay blocking all day long. The chemical ones are just rated for like an hour and they start breaking down under the light. I'm not a scientist, so don't quote me on that. But to my understanding, that's what was going on. So yeah, mineral-based sunblock for you fair-skinned people. No one needs to deal with this. It's a hassle. I'm only 30 something years old, in the upper 30s, but yeah, it's still pretty young. I'm still 17 in my head. So
Yeah,
no one needs to
exactly.
deal with this. No one needs to deal with this, make sure. And I got a blast shield. I got one with the protections, the added protections on that I, have on my torch. And so yeah, protect yourself, people. You get, your life, and you should live it to the fullest
Yeah, it's
and not get bogged down with issues.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, it's so important. Like that's there's so many different areas of our industry that because of this explosion of new people that are doing it, and for those of us that have been doing it for so long, and there's a good, I mean, I don't know how many of us, but maybe like maybe 400, maybe 500 of us that have been doing it for like 12 years plus. So it's like I'm scared in like 20 years we're all gonna have some fucking weird something happen. It's so important that we all pay attention to this now, especially as laws change and we get to a point to where we can really go public even more so. I mean, you're in California, so it's different, but me being in Florida, I'm still in the good old
Yeah,
boy
you got a
states.
whole different.
Yeah, so but once we do get federally legalized across the country, it's going to open the doors to more people coming in. And so to get this foundation of education now for everybody to understand this is important shit. This isn't just bullshit. You got to really pay attention to
Yeah,
everything from your ventilation to your bench setup to your lighting to your everything, especially sunscreen and your glasses that you wear. It's like those two things are so
yeah, your
important.
eyes and your skin, and yeah, ventilation's so important. I see a lot of newer blowers skimp on that, and that's always been very important to me because you got to take care of your lungs. And a lot of the colors we use and stuff, they're off-gassing some pretty nasty chemicals, and um, you want to get that away from you. Unfortunately, no matter what, using the medium, you're going to end up ingesting. It's going to happen. You're going to breathe in stuff you don't want to be breathing in, and you're going to but you got to do the best you can, and you got to be aware of that. And so, yeah, ventilation's another place that I see a lot of people kind of skimp out on. It needs to be good ventilation.
Yeah, absolutely. I just recently, right before my birthday, which was back in December 16th, like I guess like the 15th, I went and got blood work done, my annual blood work stuff. And while I was doing it, I was like, hey, can you guys test me for my heavy metals and shit? And she's like, yeah, so go pee in a cup. And because I mentioned they were asking me the different things I'm looking for, and I said, especially besides the cobalts and crap, but cadmium is one of the ones that we deal with a lot. So I had to pee in a cup for that, but I can't. I literally got off my torch and drove to the doctor's, so I was like, it was all fresh on my system, and I was good to go, dude. Like there was no levels of anything that were anything of any concern. There was no cadmium in my blood work or in my urine at all, so
Right.
which was good, for as long as I've been doing this for, and having worked in situations and spaces that were not at all ideal for any, eating a meal, much less blown glass.
Yeah.
We've all been there, done that. It's well, maybe not all of us. The new generation has a lot more access to the new stuff, but still, it's again, just to reiterate it is so important. And even thinking about your hands, like your hands are like the closest thing to your torch besides your face, and we don't have a blast shield protecting our hands, so we got to put sunscreen on the back of our hands and stuff too.
Yeah, yeah, it's important to cover everything that's going to be exposed to the flame.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that with us too, man. I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, no problem.
So I guess right now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take a break and thank our sponsors, and then we come back, we will crash the kiln and go through our quick round of questions. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/wiseguy radio. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. That's at www.audibletrial.com, AUDIBLETRIAL.com/wiseguy radio. All right, dude, we are back. That was a quick little break. So we didn't really talk about this beforehand. I used to call it the lightning round, and I was trying to come up with a term that was industry based. So I was like, something we all do is crash in our kiln, or we have. So I figured we call this round the time to crash the kiln.
Right
And
on, my man.
yeah, dude. So basically, it's about 6 questions, just kind of rapid fire questions. You can expound upon the answers if you would like, because generally it does happen. And after that, then we'll keep on going. But you ready to get started on that?
For sure.
All right, man. Let's crash the kiln. So I guess our first question, first and foremost, is if you could work with any living glass artist that you haven't worked with yet, who is it and why?
I have, well, geez, I'd love to work with probably Jason Lee. I have not worked with him, and I've always been a fan of his work. And definitely, doing pattern work and bright popping colors and stuff like that. How could I not want to work with the man?
Yeah, especially all the Marini stuff he's doing nowadays.
It's insane.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you could describe the sound of glass cracking in one word, what is it?
Probably that tink.
Perfect.
I hope I got high pitched enough there to convey.
I'll do a little filtration in the mix and make it higher for you. What are your top 5 favorite colors in glass?
Top 5 favorite colors in glass would be jet black, steel wool, jade green, triple passion, and fade to black.
Cool. What's the worst injury you've ever had in the studio?
The worst injury, well, the most embarrassing and unbelievable, but that really happened, or the one that was the worst injury?
You want to share? If you want to share both, either way, dude.
I'll share both.
Okay.
Okay, the true story, when I was doing production, we sat down and worked, and I was learning how to fume with gold, and I had a piece of a gold blob that was way bigger than what you should have when you're fuming, because you know how they like to jump off the rod.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually jumped off the rod and landed in my lap and burnt through my pants and through my underwear and embedded itself into my nutsack.
Jesus.
And not embedded itself deep, but enough to where it was stuck. And so I jump up, in pain. I run to the bathroom, and I drop my drawers, and there's this little shiny, and I did for the split second have the thought, maybe I could just leave it in there. But no, I pulled it out, and it pulled out right away. But I did have a little burn on my bean bag for, it was sensitive, and it did really happen. And I have one of my current shop mates was at the studio at the time. I'm lucky that I still work with some of the guys that I came up with, who actually worked with me at In-N-Out Burger, and I just ended up getting them in the glass industry because they're my friends. But anyway, so that's the most unbelievable story, but it did really happen to me. And then the worst injury I think I have was probably a burn. I can't remember, but in fresh memory is a cut that it was dripping so much blood that I had to pour a whole bunch of super glue in it, and the blood kept pushing the super glue out. And so by the time it had hardened a shell over it, I had this mound of bloody super glue over that I just left there, and then it peeled off the next day and left a clean cut wound that I then super glued again with way less glue. But that was the worst. There was just a lot of blood, and some people get squeamish about blood. I never really do. I don't like seeing other people in pain, but my own is okay.
Hell yeah. Yeah, man, there's been so many times where I'm rolling a blowpipe and I'm like, why is this thing sticky? I can't figure it out. And I look down my pipe and it's just saturated in blood from a little scratch I had on my hand.
You get used to these, that happens a lot. You get little nicks and stuff that you don't even realize while you're working.
Yeah.
Because you're just in the zone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why when I teach people at first, I'm like, you're going to burn and cut yourself and it sucks, but you just got to learn to just keep going, because if you sit there and ponder on it, it sucks. So don't ponder. Unless it's obviously really bad,
I find with most burns, if you put cold stuff on it, it makes it way worse for the rest of the day. The minute that cold thing is gone, it just starts throbbing. But if you just work through the pain and get it kind of close to the heat again, in 20 minutes, you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Hell yeah, man. So you kind of already answered this one, but I'm going to ask it anyways. In the shop, so you guys listen to the radio or watch TV? How do you guys go about that?
Oh, well, we do both, actually. We have a TV, and sometimes the guys like to watch movies. my back is to the TV, so I'm only kind of interested if it's a movie I've seen before, because then I don't have to be watching it. I'm kind of, know what's going on. But a lot of times we listen to music, and in the mornings, I'm usually got the studio to myself for a couple hours, and sometimes I don't listen to anything. I just like the silence. And then sometimes I like to listen to I listen to everything from rock to classical to country I listen to everything. And then nighttime, we call it Goose Fire After Dark, and you can actually look at that hashtag on Instagram. But
Nice.
Lamar, he takes over DJ duties, and he plays a lot of like trap music and um, drum and bass, and yeah, all of that electronic dance music. And so it's kind of fun because he gets into it, and you can't. I enjoy that kind of music too. So at night, it's definitely like a nightclub at Goose Fire.
Hell yeah, I'm on the hashtag right now, and I see what you mean. Dudes in their underwear, all right.
Team some stuff.
It's fucking awesome. That's what's so much fun though, dude. Is having a space where you can just have fun and share it and be creative and just not give two shits.
And in our break room, we have this awesome arcade system, and we've got a ping pong table and a weight bench, and it's not just work there. There's a lot of, you know, non-work stuff that you're at the studio to do, and it's awesome. I mean, I'm really this is the happiest I've ever been at a studio I've ever worked at. I mean, Goose Fire is awesome.
Hell yeah, that is too cool. So my last and final question for you to finish this one up is a fun one. If you were stranded on an island that had a glass studio and all it supplied was your gases and a kiln, and you had to make a vase, what 5 items would you bring?
Let's see. Well, I'd probably want a generously tapered reamer. Um, and are we just talking hand tools?
Whatever 5 items you need to make it.
Well, I need my torch. I definitely need my torch. I need a reamer. I'd need I have a pair of hook pliers I use for a lot of stuff. So that's 3 things. My paddle, that's 4. And I need a claw grabber. Even though I'm not really a fan of them, I need a claw grabber. So that would be my 5 to make that.
There's one important thing you're missing, which a lot of folks miss.
What?
Your glasses. Your glasses.
Oh yeah, I'd need my glasses too.
Yeah.
Well, then I'd have to ditch out I could ditch out on the claw holder for my glasses.
There you go.
So there we go.
Hell yeah. Yeah, man, think of ways to like take wood or rocks or whatever and make tools that you got to make, that's why I think it's an interesting question. And I usually know, honestly, I think I was actually asking people with their torch also in there included as an item, because of course you're going to need that. But then at the same time, maybe not, because then you can start a fire and create some kind of oxygen pump system, and like they used to do back in the day before we had torches.
Yeah. Yeah, you see those old-timey pictures with the lamp working stations, and they got the foot bellows they're working,
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy though, dude? Thinking that shit, thinking of what it went to, what it's gone from to where we are now, to where like if the shit hit the fan, we could actually still go back to that. Like my voice said that if the shit hits the fan and our power grid systems goes down and we're all fucked, I'm gonna make milk bottles for the cow farmers and trade milk and meat for bottles.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that always appealed to me about this was, after when I signed up to do it, or I got hired, it was, they were emphasized it's a 2-year commitment, and but I always thought, well, like after the 2 years, I'll have a set of skills, that's like no one can take that from me. I know how to work glass, so a lot of people don't do things with their hands anymore, and a lot of our society is geared towards just not being able to do things with their hands. Like a lot of things you need to go to a specialist to have repaired, or you just throw it away and buy a new one. You don't fix it. So these are skills that used to be, and I'm not just talking glass, but I'm just working with your hands in general and being able to make something from nothing, were more common skills that people had 100 years ago than they have now. And so I'm glad to be a part of that tradition.
Yeah, I agree, dude. Yeah, to be an artist, but also to be a craftsman in a sense, and have that trade or
Yeah,
the tradition, like you're saying. Especially with our tradition, I mean, the lamp working isn't as old as glass in general, but it's still to be a part of this long history of tradition of glass artists. It's a blessing to be able to do this and get up every day and make a living at it.
absolutely. I feel grateful every day that I get to do this.
Hell yeah, it's amazing. So before we let you go, man, if you can give our audience any kind of parting piece of advice, and then also where we can find you in cyberspace.
Let's see, parting piece of advice as far as what in life in general,
Yeah, just with the
or
glass, I guess, towards the glass. I mean, you can do whatever, man, about life. I mean, honestly, that's what this is all about.
well, let's see. Um, yeah, I guess for the glass, for a new person would be to just a lot of the new people I see coming out to the scene, they're so focused on trying to make what they see is cool now that they don't really get the basic skills in. And it's far more important to be able to do the basic stuff really, really well because the market's going to constantly change. So if you see something that you want to make and that's all you're going to learn how to make from the get-go is just try to recreate something that someone has already done, and then B, you don't have the skill set to do it, you're going to end up hindering your growth. But if you spend time on the basics, like learning how to blow a proper bubble, learning how to do proper welds and seals and that kind of stuff, then you can make whatever you want later on down the road without having to worry about those things because you have the basics you can build off of that. And so then wherever the market churns, you're going to be able to follow suit or even in time be able to guide what's becoming popular and that kind of thing because you have the skill set and you're not constantly chasing the curve, I guess is what the best way to describe it. You're not constantly chasing the skills that you need to make what you see. You already have those, so you can be doing what you want to be doing.
Yeah, man. Well said. Yeah, it's like this whole fucking Q-tip holder thing. It's. I saw one of your friends that you work with on. I was looking at earlier. I can't remember who the hell it was off the top of my head, but he was showing a picture of a Q-tip holder that he made for his mom like 5 years ago, and I commented saying, I just recently posted the same thing. Went to my sister's house and saw this Q-tip holder. I made every year I make my family something, and that was like 5-6 years ago. That was the Christmas gift, was a Q-tip holder for your bathroom. So I told my sister, I'm like, that thing's worth about $1,000 right now. You can go on Instagram and auction it off.
Yeah, no, and you know what? It's funny. I see a lot of people hating on those kinds of things, and like, I can't get mad at people making money at all. That's awesome.
Oh
Good
hell
for
yeah,
them.
yeah. Fucking,
You know, like,
it's not crack. It's some cool glass, and if someone's gonna pay the money for it, fuck it.
yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, that's awesome. It's kind of neat to see also what the industry can come up with to use some of the things we make
Yeah,
for.
exactly. And yeah, and that's kind of on a kind of we're going on here a little bit, but I love to see the third party companies in a sense that are going along with the industry that are helping move and innovate them and us, and it's like this back and forth kind of symbiotic relationship we have. It's really neat to see it, and then like the collectors are also involved in that process too, based on feedback and what they're looking for, and it's just such a
Yeah,
huge opportunity as
absolutely.
an entrepreneur to just to kill it and be successful and be innovative. But you got to have drive. You can't be a lazy fuck that wants to make two pipes and go sell it and make a couple bucks so you can buy some Doritos and play video games. You got to dedicate,
Yeah.
20 hours a day to this shit for like 5 years at
Yeah, that's the
least.
thing is a lot of people don't see the time we put into to get what we get out of it. They don't see the lost pieces or the I mean, man, you go on a lot of the glassblowers Instagram feeds and it looks like we have awesome lives and we're always doing fun stuff and it looks really cool. But the reality is like, we work 2 weeks, 17 hours a day, and then we might get to go out and do something cool. So of course we're going to take pictures of that and share that and that kind of thing. I mean, it's a lot of work to do what we do.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not it's not an easy paycheck at all.
Yeah, man. Like I never feel hesitant or bad or whatever when my wife and I go to Disney and we go to Food and Wine at Epcot or something and we're drinking all day and I'm taking pictures of what we're having fun doing. It's like I'm not bragging. I'm just sharing that if you could have this same kind of life,
Yeah.
you have whatever the fucking life you want to have. This is what I choose to do, and
Yeah.
I'm sharing my fun with you guys. So.
That's awesome. You get to go to the Epcot. I've never been there.
Oh, dude! If you ever want to come out to Florida, bro, actually, kind of a, I'm, we'll probably go on for the next 3 hours here as we talk. Part of one of my goals this year is I now have a 1,200 square foot space that I'm sharing with a friend of mine. So what my goal this year is to start contacting artists to bring, actually either fly in or bring into town, to come into the studio to teach us private lessons, basically, but also to collab and hang
Oh,
out.
nice.
Because I'm like
Hell
five
yeah.
5 minutes from the beach. You know, and we got so much going on here. I live in this town called Dunedin, and it's this little artsy fartsy town. Like people drive their golf carts around and shit. Everybody's drinking. We have like 3 microbreweries in town. Like it's a really cool place. But
Are you
that's
guys on the east or west coast?
I'm in West Central Florida, like just west of
Okay, so you're
outside
on the
Tampa.
Gulf.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Right
Yeah,
on.
so yeah, man. So and that's part of my thing too is having access to Disney is like part of like the carrot I want to dangle out there. Be like, hey, you come hang out and blow some glass with us and teach us some shit. I'll pay you whatever what you charge, and then we can go play at Disney for a day, or I got a house, or I can get your room, whatever. There's kind of some ideas I've been playing with,
Awesome.
but you ever get an inkling or whatever, dude, itch to come out to Florida, brother? You always got a place to stay and a studio to work in, and I'd love to have you out here for sure.
Nice, man. I appreciate that.
Hell yeah. And like I said, it's been 80 degrees plus, even though it's, winter. So if it gets too cold for you, hit me up.
For sure, man. Thank you.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thanks again, bro. It's been fun talking to you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me on your show, man.
Yeah, hell yeah. Absolutely. Anytime. And don't be afraid to share the show with your boys in the studio there. I'd love to get all those guys on this show.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of them would be interested to be part of the show, my man.
Yeah, it'd be fun. So, hell yeah, man. We'll take it easy and happy melting. And I hope you all enjoyed this talk with Lurch. And we'll see you on the flip side. Oh, hey, dude, you know what we forgot to say? And real quick, is you never gave us how to contact you out there in cyberspace.
Oh yeah, how to contact me in cyberspace. You can find me at glass, or yeah, you can email me at glasslurch@yahoo.com. You can find me on Instagram, Lurch Glass. You can find me on Twitter, Lurch Glass. I don't really do much on Twitter, but I got one. And then, yeah, most everything you can either Google Lurch Glass to find me, or just put it in the search bar of whatever social media you're looking for. I probably have an account. I do most of my stuff through Instagram. That's the one that is the easiest and most fun for me to use. So that's the one I would recommend you follow me on.
Hell yeah. Sweet. All right, man. Well, thanks again. And go check out his page at Lurch Glass on Instagram. You guys take it easy. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. If you have any questions, comments, or remarks, please leave them in the show notes page area where it says comments. We'll see you soon. Have a wise night.
You're listening to the